Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's session. Are debt funds still worth considering in the current market? Presented to you in association with Mirae Asset Mutual Fund. Debt funds witnessed a strong net inflow of 1.57 lakh crore rupees in October this year, which was a steep increase from the corresponding number of 1.14 lakh crore rupees in September 2024, according to the data compiled by Association of Mutual Funds of India (AMFI). This trend reflects a strong investor interest in debt funds, which could be driven by several factors, including an expectation of an interest rate cut by the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI. Now, over the last month or so, there have been several developments in the financial landscape that are making investors wonder if debt funds are still a viable investment option in the current Indian market. With the Federal Reserve recently announcing the second cut in interest rate for this year, the RBI is expected to follow suit. The government is also seeking a rate cut to spur consumption and growth. In this scenario, debt funds could offer the potential of higher returns in the months to come, as there is an inverse correlation between interest rates and yield. But the more recent news of October CPI print of 6.2%, which is a 14-month high, adds to a new layer of complexity to this landscape. But looking at the larger economic environment in India, where inflation continues to be a major concern, lower interest rates could further fuel inflationary pressures. I'm your host, Anisha Nair Dhawan, and joining me today for this discussion is an expert, Ruti Cheta, fund manager and fixed income analyst, Mirae Asset Investment Manager, who will clear the air around some of these key questions that are lingering in every investor's mind about debt funds. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ruti.
Thank you for having.
Right. So, Priti, from the statistics that I just rattled and that has come through from the AMFI, debt funds seem to be the flavor of October this year. As an Indian investor, what advantages does debt investment or investment in debt funds offer?
So debt fund, there are various asset classes that an investor invests in, and debt is also a category that investors should be looking at. Most definitely in last 2 months or last 1.5 months, we've seen that debt has become more of the flavor because there is volatility in the other asset classes. But if you see as an allocation for an investor, in order to stabilize the portfolio, they should have an allocation to debt fund as well as other asset classes, because having a debt fund in the portfolio provides stability to the investor's portfolio and liquidity at the times when the other asset classes are creating volatility for an investor. So yes, the flavor has just come in, and this comes into the sight when the other asset classes are coming in volatility. This is the typical term that we use for the global markets also, that when there's volatility in other asset classes, investors flee to the safe haven. And this is a typical behavior that are seen globally. But in order to maximize of any situation, an investor should have a proper allocation tool according to the investment risk and according to the age bracket that an investor is. He should be having an asset allocation which has a debt as well as other asset classes well balanced.
So, Kuti, are you saying that one should invest in debt funds on a regular basis and not only when the other assets are more volatile? Is that what you're saying?
Let me put it in a very simple way. When you are eating, or when you look at a plate, right, you are not having one either carbs or either proteins, right? You have to have a mix of everything. Depending on what your requirement is, that portion can vary. Whether if you are moving more towards a bodybuilding, you might have more protein, but that does not mean that you will have less of carbs in your diet or less of fruits in your diet or something like that. It has to be balanced out. So as an investor also, according to your appetite and what stage you are there, whether you are at the wealth creation space or whether you are at a space where you want to do wealth preservation, the asset allocation can vary. But at any given point of time, the allocation has to be there. And yes, you can tweak between the asset classes in order to create a alpha for your portfolio if you are an active investor. But if you are not an active investor and you want to see through all these cycles of an asset class, an investor should opt in investing on a regular basis on all investment class. Probably the weightage might differ, but the regularity helps an investor to reap the benefit of all the asset classes.
Right. So, Kruti, we'll talk about how to, decide on how much you should put in for, equity versus debt, etc. At whatever stage of life. But taking off from where you started, you saying, look at a plate of food, or let's say, yeah, there's a thali of food, and there are too many varieties to pick from. There are different kinds of debt funds that investors can consider. They can be a short-term debt fund, a dynamic bond fund, a gilt fund, a long-duration income fund. How do they differ from each other, and how does one know what is suitable to their needs?
So the beauty of a debt segment is that there is something for everyone, right? If you see in a debt fund, you listed that there are short-term funds also, and there are long-term funds also, and there are dynamic funds also. So based on an investor's requirement, so if you are an investor who knows that 3 months down the line you need that money and you want to get the maximum out of the money that you're going to invest in a shorter term, probably putting in a volatile asset class would not help. But at the same time, just keeping cash would not help because your money is not working for you. So you can invest in a liquid or liquid plus segment, which the time horizon is for 3 months. If you know that 3 years down the line, you need to fund your child's education, that is the money something that you cannot put at risk, and it's more of a wealth preservation rather than, a wealth creation for you. You can put that money in a short-term fund, or let's say a banking PSU or a corporate bond fund. If you're an investor who wants to play the interest rate cycles, then you can put in a dynamic bond fund, or you can put in a long-term fund based on where you see the interest rate going. If you're putting in a dynamic bond fund, then you're taking a call on a fund manager, essentially, that the fund manager will tweak between the asset classes and durations. But if you're taking a long-term fund, or you're taking other short-term fund that is there, you're essentially taking your own call on the duration, and you know that you are invested for this period of time and this is my risk appetite that is there. So, or based on an investment need, an investor needs to decide that what horizon he or she needs to go for.
All right. Now, you spoke about the dynamic fund and you spoke about inflation also. So, taking that thought forward, given inflation is high, what kind of funds can investors look to invest in so that they at least beat inflation? Because, you said if I want to invest in 3 months, I can keep the money in my bank also. In a liquid fund, will I get better returns than, say, the bank returns over 3 months?
As an investor should look at what is their time horizon rather than being bothered about inflation. So if as an investor I'm putting money in a debt fund today, if the interest rates are going high, your investments are going to get realigned at a higher investment, because that's a fund manager's job to realign the portfolio for maximizing the return. So as an investor, if you are clear about what investment horizon you going in for, I think rest would be the noise, and the fund managers know that how to navigate through that volatility. But as an investor, you should be more bothered about what is your investment goal rather than what the markets are, going through. The volatilities will always be there, but as far as you are sure about the goal that you want to reach in 3 years or in a 5 year, there are bound to be market volatilities. It's not only this asset class; there could be other asset classes also. But at the end, if you are patient enough to wait through it, it's pretty certain that investor would reach its goal, beating it, whether it's beating inflation or whether it is making couples for your child's education, or your travel plans, anything that is there on horizon.
Right. You spoke about volatility in different asset classes, and because of the proliferation of news and greater financialization, people are very aware about what's happening, and perhaps they sometimes try to time what they do in different asset classes. Now, the Federal Reserve cut interest rate twice, and this happened after a long time. Maybe this was the first time in 4 years. So, in the light of expected monetary loosening measures, it is expected from the RBI. Can you explain the correlation between the performance of debt funds and interest rate movements?
Interest rate that a MPC or a central bank decides becomes a base rate for any economy to pass it on to the further credit functions. That is where the central bank decides, as in our case it is RBI, for US it is Fed. And why this is important, because in any case where the liquidity is needed, the banks approach RBI for that base rate or lending from that base rate. So from there on, banks might follow from the banks might borrow from the RBI, and then henceforth, banks would give that money out on credit, because that becomes a base rate, right?
Yeah.
So for any economy, the base rate is decided by a central bank of that country, and from there on, the banks and the other lenders take it ahead as the rate goes forward. Now, why Fed is important? Because Fed is Fed belongs to US. US is the largest economy in the world, and because the dollar is the trading currency for every economy, the global central banks keep the currency reserves in form of dollars, and also we have trading relations with US, and every other economy has so on and so forth. So whatever US does, the impact is seen across the globe on all the economies, because it is one of the major trading partner with all the economies. Now, has that changed a bit in the course of time, or is it going different? Yes, for some economies there is some divergence that has been seen, because the dynamics of the domestic economies are slightly different, or it is not going in tandem with what the US is doing. For example, we see that Australia is still very uh, you know uh, on a status quo, and it's not going for rate cuts. Russia, it's a different story altogether, because they are on a war. But now for us and for other South Asian economies, yes, we are in a stable period of time, and if not immediately, eventually we see that the impact is there, and we do follow the US Fed path. Probably not at the same scale. We are seeing that, domestic economy, as a domestic economy, we've shown a lot of resilience, because we formed a lot of base in terms of inflation, fiscal or CAD that is there. So, as the Fed went for drastic rate hikes, as an MPC, we did not go for drastic rate hikes. And as Fed has cut 75 basis rate cut, MPC still hasn't taken a rate cut decision as yet. Already done is change to neutral stance, because the gap that is there, that is not as much, because they went for a higher rate cut. So in such a situation where there is a global volatility, we see that maybe not immediately, but eventually the central banks align to the rate decisions, because there is so much of correlation between all the economies. And therefore MPC maybe not immediately, but eventually would fall on that path. The path might not be as smooth or as fast as Fed might be, and there could be shallow rate cuts rather than a deep rate cut that would be there in the Indian economy.
All right. So I've understood what you're saying is that, most global banks would work in sync with each other. And if the biggest bank is doing something, the likelihood of other larger, other central banks to follow suit is high. But as an investor, I want to know, say, I know it's quite straightforward when it comes to a fixed deposit. If I'm agreeing that the interest rates are going to go down, I'm not going to lock in my money for 5 years. I mean, why? I mean, interest rates are going down. That's not so lucrative for me. I'm trying to understand what's the correlation between interest rate trajectory and debt fund performance.
To put it in a very simple way, if you, as a customer, if you go to take a loan or for your car, today you might lock in at a variable interest rate, because you know that tomorrow, if you are any associated with the markets, and or you have a friend who would tell, oh, interest rates are going to go down, so it's a need right now, you buy the car, but you keep it a variable interest rate, because interest rates are going to go down and you would want to reap the benefit of that. As a customer, you would go for a variable interest rate, because you know that today you are paying 8%, but tomorrow if the interest rates are going to go down, you might be paying 7% for the same car loan. But if you know that the interest rates are due to go higher, you would tell your bank that, listen, I know that interest rates are going to go higher in the due course. I would just like to lock in at 8% and would like to pay 8% in the for the future so that I don't get hit by the rise in the interest rate. Now think of yourself as an investor who has bought a security at 7% coupon. Okay, and you are locking in that for next 10 years, or let's say 15 years, depending on the tenure of the security that you have bought. Your issuer is Government of India. Let's take a very simple example of that. Now, in due course, if the Government of India starts issuing, or because the dynamics of the country is changing, it starts issuing securities at 6.5% or 6%, let's say, that means that you as an investor have an advantage because you have locked in your coupon at 7%. Now, whoever the new investor is coming in is getting an approval of 6%. Now, what happens in this course is, because you have locked in your security at 7%, your security suddenly becomes very attractive. And the market says that I'm ready to buy this approval at 7% because I'm going to get 7% for next 10 years. By buying at 6%, I would be losing 1% interest. Suddenly, your security becomes very premium. So, for a security which you paid 100 rupees, because the interest rate has come down and the issuance coupon has come down, you might gain a, let's say, 50 paise on that, or your security might become 120 rupees or so on. So you are gaining 20 rupees on that security because you have locked in at a higher coupon. So in addition to 7% coupon that you are going to get or for rest of the tenure that you're going to hold it, because the security has become premium, you get the capital gain of 20 or 30 rupees depending on how much the premium is for that security, and that is called capital gain. So, as an investor, when you invest in a debt fund, when we say that there are opportunities in the market, in addition to the accrual, you also get the benefit of the capital gain in the falling interest rate, right?
So, in such an environment, how can dynamic bond funds help investors navigate complexities in a changing interest rate environment where the inflation pressures are still there?
Dynamic bond fund, as the name suggests, it's dynamic in nature. And what it essentially does is that it invests through the interest rate cycle. So let's say if they are very positive on an interest rate cycle, they could take an duration of higher of like a 6 or 7 years. But if they are negative and they know that, there is going to be an interest rate hike, they can go as low as 1 year also. So if an investor wants to play tactical and on a fund manager across the asset classes, whether they necessarily not be sovereign, it could be corporate bond funds also. If they want to play across the spectrum in this asset class, then an investor should choose a dynamic bond fund.
All right. Yeah, so that offers a lot of flexibility. Now, SIPs in equity markets have become quite the favorites of investors and have consistently been going up in the recent past. Can investors use SIP for debt funds as well? And what kind of funds would SIP be advisable for?
SIP is advisable across the asset class because as an investor, you might never be able to, exit at the peak and enter at the bottom. That is a myth. That's not true for any investor. That is not true for any fund manager. So, if you are an investor who wants to reap the benefit of all the market volatility, then you choose for SIP. And even more so, if you are an investor who is in this asset class for a long duration or for a longer period of time, then it's better to go into the small quantum so that you sail through the market volatility and make the most out of it. But if you are an investor who is playing more of tactical and you say that, I want to play an interest rate cycle, then for that investor, a lump sum is more advisable. But for a longer horizon investor, SIP is always advisable.
All right. Now, for a large population of retirees who have always like to park their funds in safe FDs and who don't really have the appetite for equities, what kind of debt funds would you recommend for them so that they can invest in these kind of funds?
If you are going to retire and the aim of a retirement is always bring in a stable income, right? You could want that the easy liquidity is there and you don't see a lot of fluctuation in that corpus, because then it essentially becomes about wealth preservation rather than wealth creation. And at that point of time, you would probably opt for a systematic withdrawal plan, right? So, any investor from here on who's looking for a retirement and who is looking to have a stable income should look at fund like a long duration. Now, we say long duration fund because India is set up to become another structural story. We have seen interest rate coming a long way from a 12%, we've seen 8%, we've seen 7.5%, and now we've settled at 7%. We see that the base is set now to go lower than 7%. We are below 7%, but from here on, we see it's set to get lower also. And if we compare it with other South Asian economies also, their interest rates are lower than what we are. We are much more diversified than we are in demographics and in the sectors. They are mostly export oriented. We are not only export, we have consumption on our side, we have demography on our side, we have services on our side. So based on that, and we've seen that government has taken a lot of steps towards stabilizing the economy. Probably we've come out of COVID so strong that we've seen from a fiscal of 9%, we've come down below 5% now. The fiscal discipline is here to be, followed for a longer period of time. Since the start of inflation targeting, we have been in and around inflation. And we've also seen that we managed through the commodity volatility. The CAD has not gone above 2%. So from here on, we see that the base has been set for a structural story to move on. And as we've come from 13th largest economy to top 5, and we aim to get to top 3. So we've seen long way where the structural changes have happened, and to go to top 3 also, there would be some of the structural and fundamental changes that would be needed. Interest rate being one of that. So if you are looking at a retirement corpus, then this should be a very good time for him or her to lock in at these levels, because 5 year down the line, probably 7% would become very attractive and very premium, and investor could reap the benefit of this approval over the period of time.
All right, but could you then suggest, for the retirees, if interest rates are going to go down, do they put into a long duration net funds and then go for a systematic withdrawal plan, or should they just leave the money in a regular long duration debt fund?
Depends on investor need, but if they are looking probably after they retire and when they need their income, they should go for the systematic withdrawal plan in the quantums that they need. But till they don't need it, they should stick to the structural story, because there will always be more that would be coming as we move up the ladder.
Now, the taxation rate is also an important consideration. Debt mutual funds are currently taxed at marginal or slab rate. Do you think there is still some tax advantage that debt mutual funds enjoy over traditional fixed income investments? And what are the tax implications of investing into debt funds for both the short term and the long term?
If as an investor, yes, there was an indexation benefit which was there, which has been removed. But if you see now, all the asset classes have been brought at the par, and that means that they are competing with each other in your debt, in your taxation also. But one benefit that investors tend to ignore by investing in debt mutual funds is that when you invest in a debt mutual fund, you get taxed at the redemption. Now, what this essentially means is that as an investor, when you're investing in a debt mutual fund, let's say that I have locked in my yield at 7%, every year the coupon of full 7% goes into your reinvestment. That means that if I have invested a corpus of 100, my next year corpus becomes 107. Assuming that there are no capital gains that are there throughout the period, I'm just taking a simple calculation of coupon. But versus that, in a traditional investment, an investor gets taxed every year or every quarter, so that 7%
they have earned, right? On that 7 rupees they've earned.
Yeah, on the 7 rupees that they've earned, they have to pay the tax of it, and that brings down your reinvestment from 7 rupees to, let's say, 5 rupees, assuming that the high slab rate is there. So if you're an investor who is investing for a longer period of time, that could cost you around 1% of your total wealth, which on a long term basis, that a corpus, it means a lot for an investor, right? So you are essentially looping on the surplus that you can create by the reinvestment. Another risk that lies with a traditional investment is that probably you would be investing every year or you would be investing every 5 years. That means that you have a reinvestment risk also. So if in a 5 year today you have locked in at 7% goes down to 6.5 or 7, that means that you have lost on that accrual also, and you are reinvesting at a lower rate, and probably in next 5 years you would be investing again at a lower rate. So if you are a long term investor, then you need to think of an implication of tax as well as reinvestment.
Hmm. That's very interesting and very valuable for those considering the tax implication that investments in say debt funds versus an FD or something. Now, while debt funds can be a value proposition for any portfolio, investors need to treat with caution while investing, right? What factors should investors consider before evaluating debt funds? How risky are they?
So, before investing into debt funds, there are essentially two risks that investors should look at. One is interest rate risk, and second is credit risk. Now, when we talk about interest rate risk is that the MPC might go and there could be an interest rate hike. But if an investor is clear on the goal that he or she needs to get in and is ready to sail through the volatility, in most of the cases, we know that interest rate risk is temporary, and if the investor is staying through the cycle, they will make the most out of it. On the contrary, when an investor is going for a risk, credit risk is something that is permanent in nature. So when an investor invests in a portfolio, should always look at the appetite that they're looking at, whether they're looking at a higher interest rate which is offered on any fund. Is it matching with the underlying risk appetite of an investor? Because there could be some of the instruments which would be rated lower, and those might be giving a highest interest rate benefit because it's a risk reward. But one should be very cognizant of that a credit risk is a more permanent risk. It should match your investing appetite. There are investors who want to take that risk, and for sure, obviously, there is available products for that also. But it should match the appetite. And second, an investor should understand that it's always easy to get into debt instruments, debt securities, but liquidity is something that they need to be aware of, that whenever you are investing in any fund or any security, you need to create liquidity for your fund, right? So when we talk about credit risk, there is also associated liquidity risk that is there associated with it. Obviously, mutual funds offer liquidity very easily, but if you are investing in a higher credit risk, then liquidity could be an issue. So, investor, while investing in debt mutual funds, should essentially look at interest rate risk, but interest rate risk is temporary. Credit risk is something permanent, and an investor should thoroughly go through the portfolio before investing.
Now, we've spoken a lot about the current environment. You also spoke about the structural growth story in India. Now, today's policymakers and investors are faced with, very delicate balance between reducing interest rates and making sure inflation doesn't go out of hand, especially the central bankers. So, how do you view the situation, and what suggestions would you have, if any, for policymakers at this point of time to manage the trinity of inflation, interest rates, and growth? Because, while we have a structural story of growth in our country, the cost of capital is an important piece of this puzzle. It has to be competitive. Otherwise, the growth will come at a very high cost. So, what do you make of the situation?
So, as you've rightly pointed out, cost of capital is important. And as far as we've gone back couple of years back, where we've seen most of the global economies have suffered from extremely high deficit. We sailed through it pretty smoothly compared to the other economies, and we've done a wonderful job of managing the fiscal deficit also, and bringing back the discipline in the fiscal deficit, whereas other emerging developed economies are still struggling with that. On that front, our authorities have managed very beautifully. Now is the time where most of the global and the domestic is settling down on inflation narrative now after 2.5 years of it, and we're seeing that the stability is coming in. There are various measures which are taken by government also in order to smoothen the supply chains, whether it is internal, creating more warehouses, or creating diplomatic relations with other economies so that the supply chains don't get disrupted. But this is now starting to come at a cost, and we are seeing that the growth slowdown is coming. And yes, if we want to move the ladder ahead, and if we want to move from here on from top 5 to top 3, uh, growing at a 6.5% is not going to be adequate. Yes, we are still the fastest growing economy, but if we have to touch that 5 trillion, or we have to go higher than that, then we need to grow at a faster pace. Government has already done its bit by capex, but we need more push from the private also to come in, which we have not seen in India come through yet. Just taking a small example, when China was on its growth story and at peak of it, the private capex also kicked in very at a higher levels, which is not yet come for India. So India has started rolling, but it needs more of a push to get to the top 3, or where we aim to be in next 5 years. So yes, that cost of fund becomes should become a narrative going ahead, probably next quarter or sooner than we expect.
But, speaking globally, because of the high interest rates so far, demand has created quite a bit. So if the Fed is, reducing interest rates, they also want to stoke demand. And, perhaps they feel that, inflation is going to cool off and there is no demand. So can we then safely bet that interest rates are likely to come down in India as well? Because, it's one world, commodity prices globally go down, only benefit us, and, interest rates should head lower. Are there any other factors that we should keep in mind if we are expecting this trend to continue?
We discussed before, global trends, the domestic economy does follow, if not immediately, but the question remains over here, at to what length, and how much the interest rate cut would be there. But a simple answer to that would be that inflation, we should be looking at the inflation projection and what RBI thinks that where inflation is headed. So if you see for the next year, the inflation estimate is somewhere around 4.1% as of now. The growth they have maintained at 7.2% for this year, but that is likely to go down because there are a lot of narratives which have come in. And now the corporate earnings also say the same, that there is a growth slowdown that has come in earlier. So the two questions are the two focus areas for RBI has been inflation. We have sailed through it, we managed through it, and we are seeing that next year they are heading towards more of 4, and lower band of the 4 to 6% is the inflation targeting band, and towards the 4%. So that should give them a comfort that now we have stabilized pretty much on inflation. And if you take a real rate of 150 to 190 basis also, then we see that the interest repo rate could come, if not any lower, to at least 6% if the inflation is headed at 4.1%. Now, speaking of growth, which is likely to become a narrative going ahead, because we are seeing that the government officials are also focusing now on the growth going forward. That is set to become lower. The market expectations are coming in that the growth might come in at 6.5%. For us to reach the mark of a top 3, the study had said that we need to grow at 15% nominal GDP growth. We settled down because of the global slowdown at 12%. But if we are going any below at 7%, then we would be at a nominal GDP growth at less than 10%, which would be slowed down in terms of the GDP that we want to create in next 5 years. Therefore, we see that there would be more pressure that will be built up as an economy on the growth perspective, and in order to benefit of the capex from the private also, and to ignite more of the economic circle coming in, the consumption, to pick up in the consumption and everything, there has to be an incentive given, which the starting point could be interest rate. So even if we see that inflation is headed at 4%, the minimum that in next 1 year we can see that 50 basis becomes a base cut. But if we see more slowdown, then there could be more of a rate cut incentive if the slowdown comes.
Right. So interest rates could be headed lower into the next year. Thank you so much, Kriti, for speaking with us about this very interesting topic of debt funds. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. I want to thank Shruti for sharing her insights with everyone. Before we sign off, I would like to thank Mirae Asset Mutual Fund for partnering with us for today's session and to our viewers for being a wonderful audience. We'll be back soon again with another discussion on smart investing. Till then, stay well and take care.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.